For those that know of it, few fantasy series come with more baggage attached to their name than Berserk, and I am not here to try and lighten any of that burden. I am approaching this video in a far different way than any series I have pitched before, because this series, while a flawed masterpiece, isn't something I think everyone should attempt to read. I don't mean this in any sort of gatekeeping way, but instead an understanding warning. I am also not going to pull punches describing how dark this series goes, because doing so as a content creator could even be considered irresponsible. So getting this out of the way as early and quickly as possible, trigger warning for pretty much everything. In my life, I have never read a series more brutal to its characters than Berserk. But if you have the stomach for it, this is a must-read. I am someone who has been traumatized my fair share by life. Friends dying, finding bodies, assaults, and a few other things I am not comfortable sharing here. And while Berserk certainly makes me feel uncomfortable watching these things happen to its characters, I have never felt more seen by an author in terms of how these characters deal with what is done to them and how realistically trauma is portrayed. Now, this examination of pain by Kentaro Miura is far from perfect. In the read-along we have been doing here on the channel, I have made my grievances well known, with specifically a few angles to the treatment of women and sexualization of things that should not be sexualized. But when it comes to the nuances of emotional pain, Kentaro Miura has a gift of understanding. Whether it is from the terrible potential of humanity or a natural result of the universe, this story understands evil. Now, before we get too far into this, there is something I must make absolutely clear. I have no idea how Kentaro Miura writes about this kind of trauma so well. I do not know what he has been through, and I do personally find it egregious to claim an author can write pain well only if they have been through pain. It's borderline insulting to say about any creative craft, and if it were true, it means people like Stephen King should probably be locked up. But it isn't true, and I personally think Kentaro Miura is probably just a gifted character writer who has learned to lean into his strengths to a fantastic degree. Alright, so disclaimers out of the way. What makes Berserk so worth it? Why is this series spoken about by its die-hard fans, as if it has somehow perfectly landed on the pulse of what it is to be broken as a person? You have to push through some really rough bits of storytelling, shoving your way deep into the dark forest, hiding horrors you probably didn't think could be put in the manga section at Barnes & Noble. But once you find the clearings within, you'll understand a beauty that has captivated millions of fans. We have all experienced those moments where your depression has you down. Maybe a few bad beats of your life have happened in a row, and it feels like your very soul is in a pit. That is where Berserk lives, and it is where so many other fantasy series dabbled their toes. But Kentaro Miura does something, even in the darkest depths, so many authors forget to do, and it is to keep the humanity strong. Our desperate, almost consuming need to connect with others and protect that which is most precious to us. Berserk, despite what some people who never made it past the first few volumes might say, is not a celebration of pain and suffering, but it is instead a love letter to human perseverance, our ability to look power, authority, evil, causality in the eye, and say no. Nowhere is this clearer than in our main protagonist, Guts. Guts as a character has been through more pain and suffering than just about any other character I have ever come across, maybe only topped by one of his main supporting characters, Casca. And what Kentaro Miura so clearly loves about this man he has made is his strength. No, I am not talking about Guts' ripply muscles, but instead his ability to protect and love despite everything he has been through. Taking this preservation of others to an extreme, Berserk brilliantly plays with moral questions when it comes to selfish desires to protect others versus selfish desires to protect oneself. Is it truly evil to do whatever you can to try and gain more power in a world so horrible? To ignore one in need to help another you love? Relentlessly, Berserk is going to ask you these questions and force you to judge characters based on impossible decisions you probably would not handle any better. The struggler is often the focal point of these questions, or the victim of the answers other characters give. This is how character development and exploration is handled within the Berserk world, and it is so addictive. Continual games from new villains or misunderstood characters who are simply trying to do their best in a world so cruel it is understandable why so many monsters exist. Now, I am not trying to claim that Berserk is consistently at this high of a level. When we first meet Guts, literally the first pages of Berserk, he is having sex with a demon and then murders it after admitting to knowing it was a demon from before they began having sex. This is a terrible start to Berserk, terrible introduction to Guts as a character, and reflective of the worst sections of Berserk, in my opinion. As I said, there are problems here. And so I really get why so many people, even just after finishing the first volume, end up hating Berserk. I was fortunate enough to be hounded by fans to push on and learn who Guts really is as a man within this Euro grimdark fantasy world. What I found within the pages of Berserk is that Guts is far more than just some uber badass who can handle anything that comes his way. Instead, I witnessed a broken child, abused by the world around him, emotionally stunted, growing into a terrified man. A man so motivated by fear and a desperate desire to connect, he ends up under the thumb of arguably the most detestable villain ever conceived. A true exploiter of the weak, and someone who is willing to sacrifice everything for a droplet more power. An exact opposite of what Guts is growing to be. This villain, who I won't name for spoiler concerns, sees the weaknesses in Guts and knowingly bonds Guts to them. The story then takes a turn to watching what in hindsight can only be described as a personality cult functioning within a grimdark world, promising safety and refuge to its followers. Here, Guts makes his first friends, learns to trust and love, and is inevitably punished for it. After a betrayal on a truly hellish level, Guts is left with nothing. A wandering black swordsman with wounds the reader comes to deeply understand. Kentaro Miura pulls back the uber badass facade so many believe Guts to be to his core, and from there, the scarring trauma laid into this man is explored, where under a lesser author's pen, only strength and anger would motivate Guts. Those emotions exist, but are far more than just those two words. This is paralleled against the villain who betrayed Guts getting a Christ-like treatment as they achieve power far beyond what mere men can comprehend. Painted as a Christ-like figure, an ominous presence permeates the pages as we watch Guts struggle to get back to his feet as his villain, his rival, soars ever higher. Manifesting his protagonist's trauma, Miura takes Guts' sleep, his peace, and even goal in life, and destroys them, forcing his black swordsman to rebuild himself from the ground up. This is where I thought the story might begin to lack. After such epic betrayal and pain, I thought restarting after such a climax would be impossible. Instead, a new story began, and I love it all the more. Berserk, since the events of the betrayal called Eclipse, has morphed into a symphony of growth for a man with nothing. Finding new purpose, not letting it consume him like before, and building friendships for people worth protecting. Berserk has made its message clear that no matter how cruel and disgusting things become, the beauty of humanity, the beauty of existence, comes from looking at the evil bringing such pain upon you and simply saying, no, no, you will never break me. You will never break us. Whether the evil is man-made or a happenstance of the universe, strength doesn't come from how hard you hit. Yes, guts does hit very hard, but instead from the fight within you and your ability in the moment of blessed peace to look at what matters most to you and know this is worth fighting for. Your life is worth fighting for. No matter how bad this moment might be in the here and now, there is no greater f*** you to the evil of the universe than to not give in, no matter how enticing its offers may be. Because as long as you continue struggling, fate is still in your hands. Berserk is bloody, violent, perverted, and painful. But as you very well know, so is the world around us. Kentaro Miura just wants to show you you're greater than your pain, no matter what. And that is my little love letter for Berserk. For those of you unaware, we've been doing a read-along for over a year here on the channel, going through in depth the series chapter by chapter, and I've never made a video kind of just expressing how much the series has ended up meaning to me and what exactly I've taken away from it. It wasn't the most eloquent video, but I wrote it one night when I was just kind of appreciating how much this series has put on my shoulders in a way that I have enjoyed. If you'd like to go ahead and check out that read-along, there is a playlist where you can see all the way at the beginning, back when I visibly looked younger, following up until we have just recently started doing entire deluxe editions each video, just because it's time to catch up. So in about 2 or 3 more weeks, I will be caught up with the deluxe editions, and maybe, depending on what the audience responds to, start going chapter by chapter once they start coming out again. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.